Yep, it's going now. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today is October 24th, 2024. Welcome to the Plumbing and Piping Work Examining Board. At this time, I would like the board to review the minutes of the last meeting, July 25th of 2024, and ask for a acceptance of those minutes as read.
Make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay? We have it. Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to move on to the agenda for today. And reviewed that. We can go right into the topic at hand. If it's okay with everybody, geothermal and well drilling operations. John, would you like to begin? Hi, Kimberly.
Hello.
Morning, Kim. Did you ask that I take that one?
Yes, please. Yeah, if you
Mr.
want to open that up. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass that right over to my counterpart there, Mr. Birch, to review that W4 with 478.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Todd Birch. I'm the State Apprenticeship Director for the Office of Apprenticeship Training. There has been conversations not only with members of local operating engineers, Local 478, which there are two individuals on the attending virtually the meeting today, Mr. Street and Mr. Kazi. That being said, nationally, the operating engineers have put together a geothermal or well drilling apprenticeship program. Has been approved nationally through reciprocity. I accept all reciprocity, especially with national programs. There has also been large conversation between myself and a couple of the bureau chiefs and directors of the Department of Environmental Energy, DEP, with regard to having more geothermal wells in the state of Connecticut and folks qualified. There's also some tax incentives. Let's be quite clear. That's exactly why a lot of folks want to do this in concurrence with the Inflation Reduction Act, or the IRA. There is a tax credit for apprentices on the job. Does not mandate apprentices on any particular projects, but there are tax credits for the project themselves. So we're starting to see an influx of what they call green technologies. That being said, Mr. Street had come to me and had asked and had actually sent me the apprenticeship standards from the National Office of the Operating Engineers Training Fund, which I have approved. The reason I'm asking the plumbing board to review today, though you do not have any authorization of approving my programs, the state statutes 20-332B2, the licensing board can establish the amount and type of training required to qualify for an applicant for a licensing exam. So I am asking the plumbing board to please consider perhaps posing a motion to approve this particular apprenticeship program completion as an exam qualifications in concurrence with my office's approval. And with that, I leave it again to John Mesner from DCP to elaborate, and again, the representatives from Local 478 operating engineers. And I'll take any questions as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Todd. So myself and Todd did review the curriculum, and we did attend a 478 JTAC meeting. To which, Greg, do you want to speak of that meeting?
Yeah, I'll give you a little bit of background on, kind of how this came to us too. So probably over a year ago, Local 150 out of Chicago, which
Excuse me,
is
Greg.
Yep.
Chuck Appleby here. Can you,
Oh.
for the record, just tell us who you are? And I
Oh,
think you.
sorry.
Kazi, no, just that way everybody knows who everybody is. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm Greg Street. I'm the training director for the operating engineers, Local 478 in Connecticut. So just to kind of give a background on and why we headed in this direction. It was about a year ago. One of my counterparts, the training director from Local 150 out of Chicago, which they have a well-developed well drilling program, geothermal well drilling program out there for over 10 years, reached out to me to start to attend meetings with a geothermal market capacity coalition because he was on those meetings and they started to talk a lot about the Northeast. And he's like, well, we're from the Midwest, so I'll get somebody on the calls from the Northeast. And I started attending those, and they were talking about how do we generate a workforce for well drillers, not necessarily just in Connecticut, but all over the Northeast. So, it was kind of around the time that we also attended NYGEO, which was up in Albany at that time. So went there, kind of get that, got the outline of what they were talking about. We kind of mirrored what Local 150 does for their training program, and kind of put together, it's an addition onto our 4-year operator program, focused on creating a geothermal workforce, for Connecticut. And obviously talked to, Todd Birch and worked through the details of it. 80% of it was already covered on what we do already, from CDLs to forklift training to, loader training to, what 150 does to get their apprentices. So when they go out, they're not just going to be drilling wells. They can also do, the excavation portion of it too, which, comes into play a lot of the times with installing these systems. Went over that outline with them. And then at our JATC meeting, our JATC and, approved us to move forward with, approaching this apprenticeship. I actually just got back last night from NYGEO in Brooklyn, where there was a lot of conversations about developing workforces and getting the contractors heading towards, how many do you need? And, when is that timeline and when do these projects take off? And I think that's where it's kind of in the middle of that process right now, but we developed this program to move forward with that. So that's kind of where I'm at. And I thank you guys for your time and Todd for the work you put in too. So.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, Greg. Oh, good, John.
I was just going to say, thanks, Greg. Just so everybody knows, and it's on record, currently right now, the W4, which 478 is seeking, is a trainee that is run through the Department of Consumer Protection. This would be a program that would be established and administered through the Department of Labor, through the Office of Apprenticeship Training, specifically for. So that's where we are at this moment.
Great. Thanks, John. Does anybody have any questions reference to this W4? These questions in reference to the DOL, the hours, the training?
I have a question, Chuck.
Sure, go ahead, Melissa.
Did this not exist before, a formal apprenticeship for the W4?
I could speak to that. Good morning, Melissa. So the
Hey, John.
W4 was not an apprenticeship prior. It was a trainee. So whenever there's not a bona fide apprenticeship program being run, because it is an occupational trade type, it runs through what's called a trainee program. Very similar to apprenticeship. We follow the same ratios. It's just who's administering that program. So that was a program administered by, again, Consumer Protection. We would have issued a trainee card. Currently, right now, the requirements for the trainee is 40 hours of a trade-related topic. So that's where that stands. So there was a program, just not run through the Office of Apprenticeship Training.
And did they have to have a plumbing license before that to become a trainee, or anybody could be the 40-hour trainee?
Nope. So what would happen is you would have to have a W3 or a W1. Now that the W1 has been deemed unlimited, to be the contractor of record. And then you would have to have the appropriate number of licensees to be issued the trainees. You would have to put on file with us a program that identifies what the 40 hours is made up of. And once approved, we would issue trainee cards based upon the number of journey persons and or contractors that the company had.
So now this changes it to a regular apprenticeship program. How many years do they have to do?
So I just, Todd, correct me if I'm wrong, this would only be an apprenticeship that would be administered for 478 members. This would be kind of in a dual area that we would still be issuing trainee cards up until another program goes through, like 478 did, and work with Todd to have the program approved by the Department of Labor to have that program administered. Is that correct, Todd?
That's correct. It's actually, Melissa, good morning, Melissa. It's
Good morning.
augmentation of what they're currently doing. It's a new technology for them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not diminishing well drilling by any means. It's kind of like same thing like a crane. You drive around, they have a rig, they drill a hole. That's it. So you have, a pretty simple man when it comes to explaining things like that. They currently have a wonderful program. I have augmented their apprenticeship program to include some more cranes for crane licensing. About 2 years ago, this is again an opportunity for certain contractors that wish to do this work to actually engage in that. So you're not talking a mass amount of people by any means, unfortunately. But they're again to not only augment the skills that they have and have something in their pocket as another skill. It also helps the contractors that wish to engage in this work in the state of Connecticut.
Great. Thank you very much.
Sure.
I have a couple of questions. And I'm not really sure who they're directed to, but my initial read through on this document, and you just mentioned, Todd, you ride around and you punch a hole in the ground and you move on, and that's fine. But again, many of the geothermal boreholes get drilled into areas where the groundwater is sensitive and groundwater needs to be protected, and it bleeds over into the water well industry, at least, especially in this state. And I'm not sure I'm seeing, it's a training, I understand it's an outline for a training program. I'm not sure how to put a little more emphasis on groundwater protection, proper looping and grouting techniques. And it seems very ambiguous as to what they can do as far as equipment and pump work and electrical and such.
Let me clarify that if I may. This is only for punching the hole in the ground, quite simply. There's certain people that do certain things. And in my opinion, that anybody that runs the piping out, punch a hole in the ground and throw a pump down the well. I hate to, again, diminish it at that. But this will not include piping at this point in time. This doesn't go through through the structure itself. It is simply that. To the grounding and what have you, you're right about it, ambiguous. I mean, look, plumbing, every single one of the licenses, they're ambiguous, right? You could spend your entire career just putting switches as an electrician or switch gear. So that's also ambiguous. But when it comes to grounding, I would defer to Greg. Sorry to interrupt you on your thought process. I just wanted to clarify that before we got any clearer on that. But Greg, perhaps you can emphasize on the actual, and it's a well-founded statement on the grounding and the possible bleed over to other wells and what might be inclusive of your training.
Yeah, so just to add on, so in the initial application, it was broken down to drilling fundamentals. And then there's another outline that goes along with, what 150 does. So just to give you the kind of the broad topics on so the geothermal borehole construction is part of it, the safety aspect of it. And then they get into mud pumps, solid controls. It goes into borehole completion, air rotary drilling, problem holes, troubleshooting scenarios, and drilling programs. That is to start off with a 40 to 60 hour program. And then every year we add in like what local 150 does for the completion of these wells, and it does cover, all of these, all of these topics. It's listed in the apprenticeship program as like drilling fundamentals, and then geothermal and other wells, and then advanced drilling. But the topics are broken down like that through, what a sister local of ours already does. So I don't know if that answers everything you're asking, but
it helps. Let's
Yep.
go. Jay had his hand up. He may have something pertinent to add to this. I have more, but I'll wait a minute.
Okay, go ahead,
Yeah.
Jay.
I got a few. I mean, just so we're specifically going after W4 and we're claiming specifically to drilling. So I'm going through the outline on this and I see several things that stand out to me as beyond drilling. Every line item you have, drill rig, backhoe wheel, tractor type, powered industrial trucks. They'll have a line item, sustainable energy systems, equipment, including but not limited to solar and electric. Could you explain how that falls into the area of just drilling a hole?
Is that questions for me?
It's for someone.
So, oh, okay. I mean, so sustainable energy systems, because we utilize drills for foundation drilling, and we have quite a few people on the solar farms right now. So anything that is included but not limited to, anything that's a sustainable energy, and that's geothermal is one of them. But like solar, we already have people on the solar farms drilling and augering those holes, the foundation drills and all that stuff. But that's, that was put in there for that. It's any sustainable energy.
Well, it's a blanket statement, so I think it needs to be just a little language change to that to get to the specifics of what you're doing on that. Maybe just to drill specifically for solar or electric, just drilling only. I think it's a broad statement. And then on the front page, just your front page about the apprentice, the ratio. So you have 1-to-1 apprentice to journeyman. So that's not the hiring ratio. That's on a job site. I think that language would need to be to follow Connecticut's hiring ratio, right? We have a 3-to-1 hiring ratio per company and a 1-to-1 on a job site. So that line item needs to be some language tweak. If you get to page 5 under miscellaneous equipment, it's very blanket statements as well. Operate, service, and adjust all types of pumps. I think that needs to be changed, your language. Operate, service, and adjust all types of pumps related to the W4.
What page was that?
Page 5.
So, I mean, that is kind of boilerplate out of our 4-year program for all machines.
No, I understand, but boilerplate, when it goes legislation and boilerplate, that leaves a lot of gray area and open doors. So I would feel like it needs to be specified, operate, service, and adjust related drilling, operate, service, and adjust pumps related to the W4 license. And then you have in here, operate, service, and adjust all types of electric generating plants. How does that coincide or fit with a W4 drilling license?
So again, that's, it's pulled out of our regular standard, which could be in quarries and shops, for, what they.
There's already a license in Connecticut for that. There's an OE2, and that falls under the heating board.
And our members have that where they work at the quarries. For
Understood. Yeah, I got that, but you're incorporating in an apprenticeship for a W4 license. And then line D, operate, service, and adjust all other types of equipment. That's quite a broad statement as well. That language needs to be cleaned up, in my opinion. Obviously, I don't have the last say to it, but it's just, there's a lot of blanket statements on this. My personal feeling on this at the moment is it needs to be discussed further. And I would like to discuss it with, some of the board members and Todd and certainly you, Greg, and Mr. Mesner, and maybe we can, go over some of this stuff. I feel at the moment that, we're just looking at it for some of us for the first time and really don't know what we're looking at or approving. I personally would like to make a motion unless I'm doing this too soon, but I'd like to make a motion to table this at the plumbing board today and make a motion to put together a group to discuss this a little further and then bring it back to the board for further discussion.
I would second that motion.
Did you have some other comments at all too, Aaron? You had your hand up before the motion was made. Did you have anything you want to add?
Mr. Moore covered a bunch of issues that I had in my mind. The other one that I didn't mention prior was, I assume, and maybe Greg or Todd can answer my question, but there needs to be a W3 present for these to work, these W4 apprentices to work. Where are the W3s going to come from?
John?
That would depend on their signatories, correct, Greg or Chris? You know, they typically would be signatory with another drilling company that would have a W3 or a W1 as the contractor, and then they would have to align with the number of journey persons and or contractors on that site. To Mr. Moore's point, with the hiring ratio and the job site ratio being observed.
Yeah, and you know, talking with some of our signatories that are in this business, maybe not necessarily geothermal at this time, but are looking to go down that path of getting, you know, further into it. It's that new to them, that they're working with. Like I said, Local 150 has a pool of people. We've also talked to a consultant that's from the drilling industry, Brock Yorty, who has done training for, you know, other training programs across the country, and for the military. So we've talked to him about, you know, coming in and being a, you know, getting our people up to speed, and even, you know, even utilizing 150's not training materials, but their experience in this to get us up to speed on doing that. You know, I know the demand's not there yet for people, but you know, it is in other places, but still not as much as it should be, you know. So that's the game plan, is to bring those people in.
I think there's a pretty good demand for people that are qualified, that know how to drill.
Yep.
A training program, an apprentice program is a great place to start, and I applaud the effort, and I think it's a good niche for somebody like 478 to get into. But it's not just punching a hole in the ground. A lot of these wells are very complicated. Uphole velocity, it comes into effect. It's not all cut and dried and simple. Out in the Midwest, a lot of these wells are easy and shallow and done with mud, and they're pretty safe. In this part of the country, we've got deep bedrock that throws a lot of curveballs at an average driller, that if they don't have the experience, there's not a lot of room on these larger projects for practice and failure. So I don't know what the right way is. You have to start somewhere. And I think putting together a little task force, maybe to work on all these parameters more in tune for the New England environment and geology may be smart. Brock Yorty is an excellent resource. He knows the trade, he knows the business, so that's good to see he's involved. But we've got to tailor it for what's best for our customers and our consumers in Connecticut, beyond the availability of a tax credit.
Can I just
Mr.
make
Chairman,
a comment? Is that okay?
Hold on one
Through the
second,
chair?
Chris.
I'm sorry.
Melissa had her hand up.
Yep, Melissa's got her hand up. Hang on a second. Chris Cozy, is that you, sir?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry about that.
You'll be next, and then you can introduce yourself. Thank you. Go ahead, Melissa. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think my question is, I think we started with Todd saying that we don't have any say in this. Is that true? Or so are we going through this process, and do we have an opinion? Can we table this? Can we vote on it, Todd? Or is this something that just falls solely under your department? That's number one.
Jim, want to pop on for a sec, please? James Rocco. Wait for him, Melissa.
Yes, sir. How are you? Sorry, apologies. I had to step
No
away from my
problem.
desk for a moment.
Could you introduce yourself, sir, to the board? For the record.
Yeah, James Rocco, attorney for DCP.
Thanks, James.
It seems that there needs to be a clarification of the board members, Jim. For purposes of licensure,
Yes, sir.
to establish the amount and type of training required to qualify an applicant for a licensing exam goes within the full scope of not only your agency, but the board. Am I correct? Under 20-332B2?
That's correct.
So the content prior would be under my statutes. That being said, there has been a call for some refining, so to speak, for lack of a better word, of what is contained within the apprenticeship documents, which is outside of the scope of licensure. We have two different aligned pathways, but two different separations. So the question was by the members was to table this or not for licensing purposes. Obviously, they have all rights under the law. That being said, should training between the entities that are questioning not the validity nor the rigor of the program, but the content of the program, should they perhaps get together to have a conversation so it could go forward for licensing purposes at a later date? I'd like to know your opinion on that.
Yeah. So, Todd, you are in charge of developing the apprenticeship program and what is sufficient to satisfy how an individual obtains the apprenticeship, satisfies the apprenticeship after, 1, 2, whatever, how many years it requires. You can present that to the board and say, this is our program. This is what I have deemed sufficient. And I believe it qualifies an individual to sit for the exam.
Which is where we are now, correct?
Yes. Yes. If the board would like changes, certainly there's always room for conversations between DCP and DOL and the board, say what's sufficient. But my understanding is that DOL has kind of the final say on what items should be in the apprenticeship, and they present the package to DCP and the board for approval. So
For
it's more
approval
of a
just for
courtesy.
licensing purposes, not for approval of content of proposed program.
Correct. Yes.
Yep. That's the
Yes.
reason why I'd asked this to be on the agenda today, for them to be actually, in concurrence with each other is what I'm getting at. Because I'm not not in a position to approve something, not that the board has the authority to approve it, but obviously the goal is to be in concurrence with DCP because it's a licensed trade in the state of Connecticut.
Yes, agreed. And we, DCP and DOL always try to work together.
Mm-hmm.
We want to be on the same page. But I don't want to say it's a courtesy, but it almost is in a way.
Okay, so that answers my question. Thank you. So Todd, are you agreeable to Jay's comments about, having some input then?
I'm an employer-driven program. I administer an employer's program. I would leave it to the proponents of what's before us as an apprenticeship model to have conversations with the opponents, it appears to be. But that being said, I just want to leave it at that. And Mr. Appleby, I believe that Mr. Causey would like to speak to the issue.
Right.
Thanks.
Mr. Causey. Thanks, Melissa. Mr. Causey, you got the floor.
So I'm Chris Causey. I'm a representative of the trustees for our training program now for over 15 years. And, I just wanted to point out, and duly noted, I mean, certainly we want to work with everybody. We want to be prepared for the market because there's this huge opportunity that is out there, and certainly a lack of manpower. As I understand it now, the only training program is approved through DCP is 40 hours. Our program is going to be much more than 40 hours. They're going to be getting trained in all other facets of the industry. They have excavation equipment down there. Just referring to the project at Yale right now, they have mini excavators and bobcats and forklifts. And, we need to be able to provide support to those drills using all that equipment. And we have a 4-year program to do so, in which we're trying to incorporate, drilling is a component of it, but certainly they're going to get much more than 40 hours of exposure. And right now, as I understand it, through DCP, it's a 40-hour requirement. So that's all I wanted to bring to light here is I do understand the sensitivity of it, but we're trying to provide a much more comprehensive training program for the individuals to have a background with the geothermal drilling. And over the course of our program, we'll be doing other types of drilling like Greg was talking about, to support other types of foundations, as that's the work we do, so that's really, I guess, it for me. I was just trying to make a point of that.
We have Vinny up next, followed by Jay. Does anybody have any questions for Chris at this time? Okay. Any hands up? No? Okay. Let's go with you, Vinny. And you're on mute. Thank you.
Challenge on these. So, no doubt that, the operators program is top 1%, it's really a great program, located not far from us, but the language here is too far reaching. I agree with Mr. Moore that it should be specific to the work that they're doing in the geothermal arena around the drilling. Blanket statements like solar, electric, operating electric plants, it's just too broad. I think it needs a little bit of rework. I'm very much support of it. They run an excellent program. But we're also affecting the electric board and the heating and cooling board with any decision that we make. So that's my opinion.
Thank you, Vinny. Jay, please.
I just wanted to express that, 470, their programs are fabulous, and I'm all for the apprenticeship. And, going above and beyond that 40 hours is great for me, because I do have some issues with the well drilling trainees and things of that nature. I think it's too easy to obtain. But I just wanted to express that there's some statements in this program that just far reach and far exceed what the license that they're going to obtain. So that's my only issue. And I just think as a board and as organizations, we can all sit down and discuss this and certainly come up with a something that's palatable for everyone. And it will help the industry. It will develop workforce, and it will become a better place in Connecticut for geothermal. But that's all. I just want to say 478, great job. Nothing hard about that, but it's just that some of the language in here is I don't think appropriate for the license.
Vinny, did you have something else you wanted to state? You got your hand up there, or are you all set? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Appleby, if I may?
Yes, please, Todd.
Just as though I'm not a member of this board, you have a motion and a second, but if I could make a comment with regard to that, you seem to have two entities having not necessarily a disagreement, but also the board members themselves. Perhaps I could make recommendation outside of the scope of this board for 478, 777, and members of the board to convene and have a conversation. That's just a suggestion. Mr. Mesner and myself need not be party to that at this point in time, due to the fact that the content of the apprenticeship program seems to be a little bit of dispute. Mr. Rocco, do you agree with that suggestion as well?
Yeah, I do agree with that. Certainly, you could take the national program and make adjustments if desired. There would be no requirement to, but we could make a couple of adjustments for Connecticut purpose to satisfy the concerns of the board, and then come back and review the program as a whole.
Yeah, so I appreciate that, Mr. Rocco, due to the fact that I don't really want to approve on a program without it leading to a license. It's stupid. Why do that? Why have an apprenticeship for the purposes of just apprenticeship and not leading to a license in the state of Connecticut? So That being said, again, the motion on the floor itself, Mr. Chairman, perhaps that suggestion is amenable to all party. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Birch. So we have a motion on the floor to have this meeting, and we have a second. Is that okay, Mr. Moore? Or is there any further discussion on your motion?
No, I'm good. Yeah, no, I just want to have this as a conversation further on down the line with, anybody that's wants to be part of it.
Mr. Chairman, apologies. Can you
ahead.
please clarify what the motion?
The motion is to make it available to a committee here. We will not have, we didn't discuss
No.
that, Mr. or Mr. Birch, in that meeting, but Jay, you wanted to have perhaps Greg, Chris, yourself, myself, Chairman, a well drilling record, Aaron Nachbar, of record on our board to discuss these things, or is there anybody else that you wanted to?
Well, I would prefer John there as the, for DCP. He's, and the issue is some of the language goes into other licenses. So just so we can have clarification where we stand on certain things, like the OE2s, and I think DCP should be there, but if they don't feel they need to be, then, that's a prerogative. Like Todd said, we have no authority to stop this, or he can just take this and say, thanks for your comments, have a nice day. But I appreciate him giving us the opportunity to speak on it. But I'm not opposed to having Todd and John in the room, so that way we can all agree upon it and get it straightened out.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Chairman and Mr.
I'm-
Rocco, I believe the motion was for, on the agenda, new business item 3, to table this particular conversation. That's what it was, Jim.
agreed.
Yeah,
I agree. Yes, 100%.
My motion was
The motion's to table to the next meeting.
My motion was to table to the next meeting, but in the interim, set up a round table with just, a few members. The whole board doesn't need to come unless they want to, with DCP, Todd, and 478 to discuss.
And that's fine. We will, we can, we have everyone's contact information. Rochelle has everyone's contact information. So we can send around an email and an invite and kind of facilitate that meeting if you'd like.
John,
But the motion is to table to the next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Number one, I have no problem being there for the purposes of clarification. Number two, I just want to make sure that when the board does assemble a task force for this, that it's done in a non-quorum fashion. Therefore, we don't have to hold the special meeting. So I just want to make sure that's added to the minutes, Rochelle, that the task force shall be non-quorum. And we can have a special meeting between now and the next meeting to review this again if need be.
Yeah, our meetings are 3 months apart, so I really feel we should be moving this a little further. I'd like to get this task force going sooner than later, and then bring it to a special meeting, whether it's a month out. No sense in waiting until January for this or February. So if that's okay with everybody as well.
We can have an ad hoc committee meeting without any fanfare, correct?
Yes.
He just
So-
has to satisfy notice requirements.
Oh, it does. Okay.
If there's a quorum.
Only
No
quorum, correct.
No quorum,
Right.
no quorum.
Right, no quorum. And I appreciate everybody's thoughts here. Keep in mind, this is going to be we're going to be one of the first states in the country. We have geothermal already in the state, but this is going to be one of the first states that really take this to across the country. So I applaud 478's actions there with Brock and Local 150 helping out. And so this is going to go across the country, and we have a chance to do it right now. And I think that's where we all want it to be, not only for consumers for Connecticut, but if it's going to be adopted across the country, we really need to really spend the extra time and thought process here. So thank you, everybody. So we have a motion to put the task force together, um, and we'll set a date for the next meeting. Well, let's take care of the motion now, and vote on that. The motion to create a task force and talk. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any further discussion on that matter? Okay, having none. Anybody opposed to it? Very good. Everybody's on board, so that's great. Let's set a date. John, Rochelle, I guess you're gonna have to set up a room. Maybe we could come all to DCP up at 450 Columbus Avenue someday, morning or afternoon, and sit down and go over everything if we could.
Yep, that's not a problem.
See if we can find a room.
Plenty of rooms.
Plenty of rooms. Okay.
Suddenly the building filled up.
Great, everybody. Is there anything else in regards to this well drilling piece, geothermal drilling piece? Okay, we'll move on. Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Chris. Is there anybody else out here that has anything to discuss in reference here, or are we all set for now? Guess we're all set. Everybody have a good day there, and then we'll move on with the plumbing board meeting here. We have DCP Investigations Division. Does everybody have a copy of the list today provided by Jeannie, who cannot attend today, but John can defer any questions for us to her, or help us with that. Seems like they've been very busy. 11 closed. See some names again that we've seen in the past. Notice a lot of the people are getting, they're not taking out their permits with the local jurisdictions, and they're doing work before that. So I'm glad to see that's being addressed. You got to have a permit before you start the job, and not just an application. You got to have it should be signed by the building department, signed off. But of course, we all know emergencies take place, and we're allowed to do that. Frozen pipes, no water, what have you. Okay, does anybody have any questions in reference to any of these? Melissa, do you have anything on the?
I don't have a question, just a statement. I'm really happy to see that the fines are higher. They've been so low for years, and I'm happy to see the fines increased.
Great, so noted. Thank Janita and her staff. John, please, great job.
Yes.
Great to have more
Will do.
inspectors in the field for us too. This has been a big plus. We've got some really good guys in there now, and really handling it well. I know they're busy. Okay, with that said, we'll move on to legal division. Do we have anybody here from legal today?
From legal, but I don't have a report other than we have cases in the pipeline that are being worked up, and I don't want to say we have a directive to move cases, but we're moving cases. So we're getting ready for next year. You might see some hearings next year.
Great. Okay, do we have anything under old business? Okay, having none there. How about new business? Let's talk a little bit about continuing education for plumbers for the 26-27 year. I got a copy the other day of the new 24 plumbing, mechanical, gas, the significant changes to the codes coming up, and it's good 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch book. just on changes. So I'm looking forward to reviewing that. I just received a copy of that document from ICC, fresh off the press. Last week when I was at the state building official meeting up in Amherst, at University of Massachusetts at Amherst, and Gary Gauthier was there representing ICC. He wanted to attend today. However, he wishes he could be here. He is in California wrapping up the national convention for ICC out there. He works obviously the plumbing, mechanical, gas area for ICC. And we're lucky to have him as a Northeast guy. With that said, does anybody else have anything they'd like to add to this morning's meeting? I'll be looking for task force members to help me write the next round of continuing education for everybody, for all the schools. I know I've had the J1, J2 organization call me already. They're starting to work on their program for next year, which is good. So we're moving forward. So somebody wants to reach out to me and give us a hand with the committee, that'd be great. Joe Policio was involved with Carleton last year heavily. Spent a lot of time with a couple other individuals, myself to get this all together. It was late going, but I'd like to get this forged ahead a little sooner so we can get it on the books quicker. So, because again, we're only meeting every few months, so it's kind of hard to get everybody together. And I understand there's a gentleman there named Justin, and he's from the Pool and Hot Tub Alliance. And would you like to add anything? You're on mute right now. Would you like to add anything, sir? Tell us.
Sorry, I'm trying to follow the rules that was set in the meeting. Stay off camera till you're ready to speak. Hi, everybody. I'm Justin Ivy. I work with the Pool and Hot Tub Alliance. I'm stationed here in Connecticut, though. Managed a pool service company for 10 years before joining. And I volunteered to be on the Connecticut Spa and Pool Association board and help them with their education moving forward, kind of from the national side, as well as, hey, this industry helped give me a job and a wonderful license here in the state of Connecticut. I just came on camera because of the continuing ed. Our swimming pool builders need to have education by the end of January. January 30th is their deadline for their April renewal. Since I just took this position, I was under the assumption that the board here provides us a template of what we're supposed to be teaching to send a course back. And that assumption may be wrong, which is why I'm here to try to figure out how we get the right course approved for our continuing education. We're running on a short window to get these classes in right now.
But Justin, just so you know, the plumbers are a little different than the electricians. The electricians do their continuing ed with a new curriculum every single year. The plumbing board with 16 licenses, including yours, has a contractor 1 year, which we just wrapped up back on July. And then the journeyman now will come in of the same curriculum. They'll come in and start the next round for this coming year for 2025. So the next curriculum that we'll be looking for is the 26-27 curriculum. So I'm not quite sure what your situation is involving. So your contractors of record for your SP1s, and they should have been
SPBs.
already.
Yeah, so these SPBs are every year, right? 4 hours every year. So we held courses January of last year off of the templates of what we've done. So we're supposed to be using that same template for this next year for them to renew.
I'll have John Mesner discuss that with you. He's here. He's got his hand up right now. Here we go, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Pember and I had a meeting last year regarding the SPBs and found out that they were doing it every year, and that's the way it's been done since the inception of the license. So that's kind of what they were running on. And as far as the curriculum, they've been providing. So Mr. Pember, who's in the call as well, was the individual that was reviewing the curriculum prior to. So last year there was some questions that had come up, but yes, that was, Mr. Chairman, a credential that was being observed every year for the CE. I don't know when that occurred and why that didn't follow with the every other year. but
Yeah, yeah. Rizzo was in charge of this many years ago for your association. He's gone now, God bless him. He did a lot for the industry. He brought the spa people up top, you know. So
Yeah, with a large team of people that I'm still working with, and I really, thank you guys for the opportunity. I thank the Conspa board for letting in a younger, fresh face to try to figure out how things work, so we can continue the great work that Conspa has done hand in hand with you in the state. But from what I'm hearing, I should be coming up with something and sending it to you guys for approval at this point, since we have such a short timeline. The state requiring 3 weeks for us to submit our paperwork before the class happens. Couple holiday week coming up. January 30th is a very tight deadline to get anything done. So should I be coming up with something on my own and sending it into you guys to approve for this year's for what we need to do by January 30th?
so Mr. Cohen is in the meeting. I would defer to him, but you still should be applying, identifying, per your provider, where you're gonna be holding the classes, etc. And that application should include the curriculum. So if you want to defer back to previous years, adding any changes, that part would then be reviewed by Mr. Pember and the board. So I don't know, Mr. Cohen, if you have anything to add to that. We lost you, Jay.
No, nothing to add.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if there's any questions, you can always email, I believe it's dcp.continuingeducation@ct.gov. That's going to be the
Yeah, and
email
that's
you want
how
to
I
use
ended
for
up here.
questions.
I keep emailing and asking, and she kept saying early October it will be ready. And now we're here on October 24th, where you guys don't reconvene until 7 days before my deadline for teaching everybody. So it's something that we're not. It doesn't seem like I am going to get the curriculum lead from you guys. I'm going to look at what we did last year and kind of put something together and submit it and see how the review goes.
Correct. Adding any changes that went in there. You don't need the board meeting for the app for your curriculum to be reviewed. So once you submit the application with the curriculum, that will go over to the board representative to be reviewed and approved.
I thank you guys very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
thank you, Justin. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it. Melissa.
Hey, Chuck.
Yes.
That's a good point. I just realized how late it is in the year. I mean, this is getting late for all CEU curriculums. So I would just ask that your task force gets together sooner than later. I can't believe it's the end of October already.
Yep. I just got the code book a week ago, so it's kind of, and we have a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of stuff happening too outside that. So, feel free to jump in and help out if you want. And I'd like to find out who on our board is going to be able to help us out as well. So please reach out to me and let me know if you can show me some hands. I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. With that said, is there anything else we need to?
Mr. Chairman, we did have a individual, Mark. I don't know if you're looking at the other.
There's 4 applications to review still too.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I want to get to that too. That's right. Before we end here. Go ahead, John. What were you saying, John?
Mark, is Mark on the call?
Yeah, I'm here, John.
Okay. Hi, Mark. If the chairman so desired, Mark wanted to come before the board to present a question pertaining to glycol mix that his company represents.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. Where is Mark here? Mark, if you can hear me, can you? Okay, very good.
There he is.
Can you identify yourself and what you do?
Sure. My name's Mark Stone. I'm the general manager of Hydrotech. We're a manufacturer of industrial heat transfer fluids based in Connecticut. So, Charles, I approached Jeff Howard from the DEP a while back with regard to getting an approval of an ethylene glycol-based product for geothermal working fluids. And this came about because a company called Dandelion Energy had approached us. They're based in New York, and they work with ground source heat applications. They're essentially installers, and they wanted to use our product, but they ran into some difficulty with regard to regulations in New York. So that was about 6 weeks ago. We've had several meetings with New York. New York's now approved the use of an ethylene glycol-based product for geothermal applications. And we are currently working with the Department of Environmental Protection from Massachusetts, and I suspect that probably by year's end, we'll have an approval for them as well. So with regard to Connecticut, I sent Jeff Howard all of the supporting documentation in terms of the efficacy of this product. And then at some point, he turned me over to John Mesner, and John asked if I would come and talk to the board today. So that's why I'm here. I think, John, you had forwarded the board members all of the information that I had sent to you?
Yes. Yep. It was part of the agenda package.
So my understanding, and I'm not an expert on this, chemical engineering is my background, but when I looked at the regulations for Connecticut with regard to geothermal working fluids, basically, the contractor says use the following closed loop geothermal system fluids for closed loop geothermal systems. The refrigerants commonly referred to as R134A, R407C, and R410A. Drinking water is defined in section 19-13-B102 of the regulations of Connecticut state agencies. And number 3, heat transfer fluids containing potable water combined with a maximum of 25% propylene glycol that has been approved by the Federal Food and Drug Administration. And lastly, other geothermal system fluids or additives approved by the Department of Public Health. So as some of you might know, the federal standards allow the use of ethylene glycol as well as ethanol, propylene glycol, and other fluids for geothermal. But many states, like Connecticut and Massachusetts, have written their own regulations with regard to approved working fluids. Some states don't use any, the regulations are pretty loose. Some follow the federal standard, and some, like Connecticut, write their own standards. We do sell inhibited propylene glycol, which is generally used for geothermal working fluids, as well as other diols. But we also are a company that patented technology called detoxified ethylene glycol. Ethylene glycol, as you might know, is toxic. It's the product that's in most of your vehicles if you have an internal combustion engine. But it's generally regarded as toxic. Many years ago, we developed a technology to detoxify the ethylene glycol. And because most engineers would prefer to work with ethylene glycol because it is less viscous, it has a better specific heat, it's less costly in the open market compared to propylene glycol, but they typically don't because of concerns of toxicity. So we went about working on that many years ago to find a way to detoxify ethylene glycol. Since then, we have an FDA approval of that product. It's the only ethylene glycol product in the world that has an FDA approval. We have an NSF approval for incidental food contact. It's used in, the Defense Department uses it for flight suits, some very sensitive applications that speak to the efficacy of the product. So what we're looking for is for Connecticut to think about proving the use of this product. It's Thermox DTX is the name of the product, but it's essentially a detoxified ethylene glycol. And that's why I'm here.
Okay, thank you for that, Mark. I mean, you've got NSF approvals already. It's being used. Why can't it just be widely, used with the through the Department of Energy and the Food and Drug Administration? And why isn't it just universally used across the country, just the way it is now?
It's usually because there are federal standards that allow the use of ethylene glycol, not specifically Thermox DTX, which is an ethylene glycol-based product, but states are free to use ethylene glycol. But states like Connecticut or Massachusetts, New York, Nebraska have taken it upon themselves to call out just propylene glycol for whatever reason. And so they are free. They don't need an approval to use an ethylene glycol. Companies like Dow Chemical, which is a multinational company, right now sell ethylene glycol-based inhibited fluids as well as propylene in the United States for geothermal. It's that there are many states like Connecticut, that have decided just, I'm not sure what the rationale was, but to allow only the use of propylene glycol unless otherwise approved. So all we're looking for is an approval to be able to use whether an ethylene glycol-based product or specifically our product Thermox DTX for geothermal, because companies like Dandelion Energy, who's a company that we are working with now, who operate in Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New York, would like to standardize the heat transfer fluid they use for geothermal working fluids. In order to do that and feel comfortable doing that, they would really like the approval from the states that they're doing businesses. They have New York's approval just recently. I suspect, as I said, Massachusetts will follow the line based on feedback that I've gotten from Massachusetts. And now we're looking to see if we can get an approval for Connecticut.
Have you spoke with the DEP in Connecticut, including the Department of Health, and got any correspondence from them? Because obviously they were part of writing these regulations with us many years ago when we got the approval back in 22. Everybody was at the table when those regs, that statute was written. So just wondering where the health people are on this, and DEEP.
Mr. Chair, I do see Jeff Howard was on the call before. Jeff is still on. There he is. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Morning, Jeff.
I'm here. Thanks. So I received the correspondence from Mr. Stone some
Jeff,
weeks ago.
Jeff?
Yes. I'm sorry.
Chairman of the Plumbing Board. Could you introduce yourself, please? The board knows who you are then. Thank you.
Jeff Howard. I'm an environmental analyst with the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection in the Energy Bureau. So I have had nothing to do, and I don't know that my bureau's had anything to do with the origins of the state regulation on geothermal fluids. I doubt that that's the case even for the bureau. Whether the other bureaus within DEEP have had a hand in that, I honestly don't know. I had very limited advance notice for this meeting. I did reach out to the International Ground Source Heat Pump Association just to get a background perspective on this from their standpoint. They agreed that ethylene glycol is not widely used in geothermal systems. Propylene glycol is the leading fluid, but the only objection from that vantage point for geothermal fluids to include ethylene glycol is the toxicity. And if a detoxified version of this working fluid is available, and if it has adequate inhibitors included that would inhibit growth of microbes and so forth, from the standpoint of the International Ground Source Heat Pump Association, there's no objection. We haven't had those conversations within DEEP. I don't know if there's need for that. If there is, I would expect the agency to recognize that the wisdom of that general perspective.
Great, thanks, Jeff. I mean, as I would think that we really want to get Department of Health and DEEP and at least some sort of talk on this before. I mean, does the board really have to make a decision here? It's have to be perhaps James could tell us, but it could be a statutory change, maybe adding that language if DPH and DEEP approves of this as well in the state.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, for the record, James Rocco, attorney DCP. Item number 4 in the regulation, which was cited by Mr. Stone, does say other additives or fluids approved by the department and DPH. So it would be the department's position that we would like to speak with Department of Public Health and get their perspective on it. It would have been great if they had a representative on the call as well today, but I don't see anyone from DPH on. There might be a publication requirement by the department to make sure that, hey, these are the fluids that fall under this kind of general catch-all in sub 4 that have been approved by the department, the board, and DPH. So I think we'd like to meet with DPH and kind of get a joint perspective, DCP and DPH, before we took action on it. the board could move on it, but I don't think we would the department actually would allow it until we had DPH input. So it would be our perspective that we maybe just hit the pause button until we could convene with DPH, get their perspective, and then restart the conversation for approval.
Great, thank you, James, for that. Aaron, we have, you have your hand up and then followed by Vinny.
Just to follow what Howard and, what Jeff and James said, when we wrote those regulations, we left and other approved fluids for options in the future. We did not choose anything but propylene glycol at the time writing the regulations because that's what was industry standard and that everybody recognized and we were taught in class. We also ran our percentages, most of us in the geothermal installation and practice and drilling, we run much lower percentages of an antifreeze. We were always taught that. It was the most efficient way to build a system. Much lower percentages than currently are allowed within our code. So we were, reading quickly through the ethylene glycol data. It looks like you solved some of the COP issues that we had with propylene and the viscosity. Dow has made some controversial products in the past, and although it's got an NSF certificate and it might be great to put in my ice cream, I'd like to have a little time to read through the data.
Thank you. Vinny.
Hello. Yeah, I think we definitely need to hear back from DPH because you're talking about possibly affecting groundwater, and I appreciate the input. Of course, the ethylene is more efficient. Asbestos is a greater insulator too, but I'm not going to be using that without some study. So the fact that the product is mechanically better is not as important as this is going to transverse through groundwater table, and public health needs to be involved.
Thank you, Vinny. Would the board like to make a motion?
Sure. Like to make a motion that we table decision on this additive for a bit more review and act on it at our next earliest convenience.
Great, thank you, Aaron. Okay, do we have a second on that?
I'll second that.
Okay, do we have any further discussion? Vinny, you have your hand up? All set, okay. All in favor of continuing this for more information to perhaps the next scheduled board meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Great. Opposed? None. Okay, great. Thank you. So Mark, we'll see you and Jeff perhaps at the next scheduled board meeting. I think it's January. Let me see, we've got November, December, into January. So, okay, we'll see you all then.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, moving on. I think we have our applicants to be reviewed today. First one we'll come up to, maybe Jay could elaborate on a lot of these because obviously they went through the application review committee. First name is John Pelletier. He's
Mr. Chair, I think he just signed off. He sent a chat saying that he had to run.
Mr. Pelletier has left?
I believe he is off the call. Mr. Pelletier, are you still on the call? Okay. He did send a chat saying that he had to pull off the call.
Okay. Maybe we can reschedule him for the next meeting, perhaps?
That's your call. Mr. Pelletier was seeking a P7. He was a business owner. He is a business owner. Currently working in the field as he had attested to in his application. Never having done a P6, never having worked within an apprenticeship. Just seeking the P7 license.
Okay, well, we all, if he doesn't have a P6, then he's not gonna be able to sit for a P7. That's pretty straightforward. So,
Usually, Chuck, if somebody's up there and they've been denied an apprenticeship, they don't have anything backing to say they are entitled to this license. If someone's from out of state and they have an equivalent license, they're usually approved. So, that's the last three people. I don't have my notes out, but I believe most of those people did not possess the proper qualifications to sit for that test.
Okay, let's go through each one of them separately
Yeah.
then. Okay, we'll walk through it.
But Mr. Chairman, if the board wanted to make a motion, I'm sorry, I can have Karen follow up with Mr. Pelletier specifically because all his information was provided within the agenda. And again, he was just seeking to come before the board today, having not completed an apprenticeship. If the board had a motion to make on that, we could have the department follow up, or we could leave it tabled till the next meeting. I would leave that up to the board.
I make the motion to let him set the meeting up.
Okay.
We have a motion. We have a second on.
I second that.
Okay, Aaron, very good. We have a motion second. Do we have any further discussion? All in favor of allowing Mr. Pelletier to come back in front of the board at his timeline to meet with us? All in favor, say aye.
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 Deny? Okay, so moved. Okay, we're on to Dylan Whitekiss. I've seen this name before. He's recommendation for denial by email, lack of P6 apprenticeship completion. Applicant was previously denied the P7 by the board about a year ago in 23 in October. So he still hasn't completed an apprenticeship. So anybody like to make a motion on that? Oh, Dylan's with us here. I see Dylan up there. Hi, Dylan. Would you like to speak on behalf of yourself?
Yes, sir. I applied, I was on the meeting about a year ago, and my understanding, the way the meeting, I was denied for my P7 because I was from out of state and I never went through a P6 licensing to get to the P7. My understanding, I didn't have at the time the review of my classes from my courses from college. So it was recommended to reach out to the technical high school to get that review and take any of the classes that I needed. And then I would be allowed to be reviewed for the P6. My understanding from reading what was online was the requirements for the equivalent statute of a P6 was a minimum of 200 or 2,000 hours on the job training in the required classes. I have been working out of state in Massachusetts doing this work, a P6 and a P7. I actually am allowed to pull permits in Massachusetts. The P6 and P7 scope of work in Mass is a little bit different. It's not governed by the plumbing board like it is in Connecticut. It's governed town by town basis, and the local authorities have the jurisdiction in that case.
Okay, so, but you don't have any classes, or where's your classes? Are they been submitted to the state in your application process with Karen Lehman?
Yes, I believe you should have a copy of the classes. There was 2 classes that I was missing, and I took those through Penn Foster that they did not approve on my code class.
Has everybody seen Dylan's paperwork in reference to this? I don't happen to have it either, so.
Rochelle, are you able to put it, share the share?
Yeah, everything was
Dylan's
sent
application.
in the link. So did you not get the link to all the documents?
Right, I didn't. I got some. but
I'm
not all.
pulling that up now.
I saw it and I went through it. It was a transfer of his Bachelor of Science into P6 license program was the title of it. And we see the Penn Foster also.
Yeah, let's take a look at it.
So, if I understand correctly, is Dylan allowed to sit for a P6 with that course credit?
No, he's never been under a registered apprenticeship in the state.
Did he need to be from out of state if he was doing equivalent work out of state?
If you have an equivalent license.
Dylan, do you have some kind of license from Massachusetts, or is it town by town and they just say, okay, we know you, Dylan, you can put in pipe?
Do you have a certification, Dylan? Do you have some kind of
It is
credential?
town by town basis. I do have, they call it a drain layers license in the town of Framingham. It's not an actual certificate because it's a local town. I do have a letter saying that I do hold the drain layer license in the state of Framingham, or the town of Framingham in Massachusetts.
Well, that's out of state, somewhat equivalency. How long have you been able to work in Framingham?
Be 2.5 years now. And I have been in the industry for 10 years in Connecticut as a superintendent project manager. I wasn't the hands-on person, but I was dealing with the local authorities as far as making sure that the inspections were set up with the appropriate people, making sure that any deficiencies from my people that were doing the work. Since then, I've moved out of state and have been working in Massachusetts.
Okay, so yeah, I'm more concerned with, your pipe laying ability and the physical portion, and some form of equivalency to what we might allow in Connecticut for a P6. I'm not that familiar with the qualifications of a P6. Maybe John can straighten me out.
Yeah, that's one half of the license. So it's water piping and storm and sewer. So
okay, P6 covers the water. That's right.
Yeah.
My understanding, it's 5 feet outside the building footprint.
It's still domestic water in the streets. It's potable water that people drink. The drain layer has no right. That doesn't allow. Don't the plumbers in Massachusetts install the drinking water?
No, sir. We install it within 5 feet of the foundation line. We do the taps in the road. Depending on the district, one of the towns, the town of Bedford, we perform the tap. We are allowed to. The town of Framingham, or sorry, I got that reversed. Town of Bedford does the taps themselves, their water department. And the town of Framingham has you do the water taps, run the line, chlorinate it, let it sit, depending on the town's requirements, 24, 48 hours, and then you blow it off and get your water sample test from there to make sure that there's no bacteria or material in the pipe.
And that's covered under your drain layers license?
Yes, sir.
Is that a physical license? Is that a physical piece of paper that says your name and your address?
I have a letter from the town of Framingham noting that I hold the drain layers license because it's much smaller. There's only 20 companies in the town that does work. So you do have to sit down and they do a class teaching you the standards that is required in that town and then take a test after that 8-hour class. And then you have to show proof of knowledge prior to it.
Did they give you a certificate for that, Dylan? Do you have a document that the city gave you after you performed that scope of work that they trained you on?
Yes, it's a cover letter, basically saying that I have been approved as a drain layer. It states my name.
See, Connecticut used to have a drain layers license many years ago. I think, what was it? Was it the P? It was it was a W9. What was it? What was the old one? It was just drain catch basins, RCP, and then they got rid of that and combined that with the P7, P6, P7. I'm talking before I got on the board, probably 25, 30 years ago. That was changed. Go ahead, Aaron. Sorry.
Well, Joe and Miss Melissa were ahead of me, but
You guys can go.
okay. Does anybody you were working at Zanellis? Who at Zanellis has a P7?
There's 3 people in our company that have P7. The owner, Nick Zanellis, his son, Dwayne Zanellis, and then one of the employees, Bror Ash.
And you've been working for them in the last year since we reviewed you the first time?
Yes, sir.
Why haven't they
biggest
kept you as an apprentice in the last year? We'd be done with this.
I was hoping that this was going to be a quicker process to try to get my stuff reviewed, and it turned out to be longer.
I understand. Zanellis needs to be stepping up to help you out here. You're in essence working there under a P7, and you've wasted a year's worth of time where you could have come in and say, hey, I'm in a program at Zanellis, guys, can you move me forward with my Framingham letter and my transcript? You would have been close to an apprenticeship.
You would have been completed. It's only 2,000 hours.
Okay, yeah, you would have been there. So I kept thinking 3,000 hours, and so we would be able to happily approve you on your way if that had happened at our last meeting when we spoke.
Aaron, it's the same reason he was denied at the beginning, because he wasn't registered as an apprentice. Went back and he didn't have the license, never registered. Now he's back again for the same reason when he's at a company in Connecticut that has a P7 that could register him.
Zanellis is not doing you any favors.
How does the apprenticeship work when you're not working in the state?
The Department of Labor can still administer a program regardless of where you're working if some of your work is done in Connecticut. So apprenticeship, as Mr. Birch had alluded to earlier, is not a Connecticut-only specific. It's administered through the Department of Labor, which is a federal program. So even though you're working outside of the state, you're still working within an equivalent experience. And as long as they could say that you're documenting all those hours, whether in the state of Connecticut or outside the state of Connecticut, the program could still be administered and approved.
Okay.
Joe Policia.
Yeah, I just had a question to verify. Mr. Watkins has been before the board before, and I was trying to find what the minutes for that. What exactly was the disapproval in the past? Was it for the apprenticeship? Was it for the hours that he completed these other classes for? Do we have the language?
I don't have the exact minutes, but it was for both the purposes. That's why he had the transcript review completed.
Okay, thank you.
And maybe it was my misunderstanding from that meeting, but I thought that if I got the backup for the hours and that I've already completed and the backup for my classroom hours, that I would be considered for the test without going through the apprenticeship program.
It's not correct.
And even though you could document your experience, so coming in equivalent experience, you could document such through your other credential. It's the other half of that credential, which is the water piping. So, if you could substantiate such that you're allowed to do such in other jurisdictions by providing copies of those laws that say that you can engage in that work without having a license or registration, that can be reviewed. But again, if anybody could just do it, that would not be deemed equivalent experience, because we have an apprenticeship that defines what equivalent experience is, which is going to be the apprenticeship program for the P6.
So I can provide you with the requirements of the Framingham drain layers license, as well as the form that they gave me when I took it, that shows that drain layer license accounts for the plumbing, all the storm piping, all the sanitary piping, and the water piping on the site up to the building footprint. Anything once you get inside the building footprint, any underground piping would then go over to the plumbing contractor or a P1 type license. Which is
that would be the same in Connecticut also. That there is limitations as to where you can run with the P6, P7. But if you could substantiate within the law for Framingham that it is equivalent, and again, if you go to the Department of Labor's website, it's going to give you a full breakdown of what the on-the-job training encompasses for the P6 program. If that Framingham license covers the full scope of the P6, that's something that you could bring back before the board.
I can submit that information to you guys.
But it would probably be advantageous for yourself, as the board members are alluding to probably have yourself within an apprenticeship program as well, so that, again, you're not losing additional time between today's date and January when the board meets again.
They could register you today, very simply. I mean, all they gotta
Yep.
do is go online and register you. And I think it's a $50 fee to register you as an apprentice. That's it.
What, 110, 60 for the employer, 50 for the employee, but it's $110 to start the program.
I will start that in the meantime. Would you guys accept if I can provide that documentation to recome to the board in January?
If you provide the documentation that proves that Framingham has the equivalent of the Connecticut P6, has to be equivalent. Can't be partial, piece, has to be equivalent.
Understand.
So if it doesn't include verbiage saying domestic water, then it's not equivalent.
Understand.
Okay.
We need a motion to move on?
Joe
Yeah.
had a question, right,
Oh,
Joe?
okay.
Sorry,
You're done.
Joe,
You, your hand is up?
oh, Joe took it down. Okay. All right.
Just get Zanellis to get you in there as soon as possible. I mean, it's a shame this time's been wasted. You'd be there.
You'd have been all set.
Hmm.
All right,
let's
I'm
give
gonna
it a few
make a
months
motion.
before the next meeting. Yeah. So, go ahead, Joe. I mean, Jay, sorry.
I make a motion to deny. If he comes back with the equivalent paper, if he comes back with the paperwork that's equivalent, we'll review it and make a decision on that. But
Jay, sorry,
Okay.
before you do that, can the motion be to table instead of deny? Because if we're gonna take
Sure.
it again, once he's denied, it's gonna kill the application.
Sure, yep. I make a motion to table that Dylan comes back with the scope of work that's allowed, the equivalent scope of work that's allowed with the paperwork or certificate or whatever it is that you're calling the drain layer in Massachusetts.
Second that motion to deny, to table Dylan's application.
Thank you, Aaron. Any further discussion? All in favor of tabling Dylan's application till the proper equivalent paperwork comes through? Say aye.
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 Deny? Okay, so moved. Okay, so.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
How should I send that information in? Should I email it to Karen?
Yes.
Okay, and then I would get notified for the next meeting? Or are you guys gonna review it in the meantime?
It would end up going to your initial application. So forward to Karen. Karen could add it as additional documentation. It will be reviewed, and if it's deemed complete, it will be forwarded to the board coordinator to be added to the agenda for the next meeting. But it would probably be very advantageous for yourself to, again, get yourself within that program so you don't lose additional time, because you wouldn't have to even come before the board today. At this point in the time that has elapsed, you would have received the gold seal letter, which would have given you the pathway to go right for the examination. So unfortunately, you just lost the year that you've been there where you could have been enrolled within that apprenticeship. So you don't want to lose any additional time in case it's not an equivalent credential. You don't want to wait 3 months to find out you still then have to enroll within an apprenticeship. It's only going to be beneficial to yourself between now and then.
I will start that paperwork tomorrow.
Thank you, Dylan.
Thank you, guys.
Look forward to seeing it at the next board meeting. Okay, the next gentleman is Guy Cone, C-O-N-E. Again, lack of P6 apprenticeship completion. Do we have any information from Guy Cone? Do we have Guy? He's with us here today. Hi, Guy.
Hi, how you doing?
Want to give us an update? What's going on with your application?
Yeah, so about 2 years ago, I want to say I had a discussion with PSI and PSI just told me that I could either do an apprenticeship program or equivalent. But I needed the college courses, so I was able, or the hour equivalents, and he explained that to me, what that was. So then it took some time for me to get the actual classes done. You know, I do work, 60, 70 hours a week. So I took full advantage of a slow winter this past winter to do my classes. And then I submitted everything to the state with the letter from my employer. And then I was notified at that time that because we're out of Connecticut and we needed to have an apprenticeship, and I said, well, wait a minute, that wasn't what was discussed. I just went down with the guy before me. I understand it, but that wasn't the road I was led down, or else I wouldn't have wasted my time for the past almost 2 years.
Let Mr. Mesner jump in on this one, because I don't know where PSI ever made recommendations from the department. So I'm kind of lost already there.
So I called PSI and got a hold of them because I didn't know how to fill the application out because it asked for my apprenticeship information. And then it keeps saying or equivalent. I want to know what the equivalent is, because on the job training, I've been in this industry since 2007.
That's not the equivalent. The equivalent is the same license from out of state.
Which
Yes, equivalent experience,
that,
sir, would be coming in from out of state. In the state of Connecticut, it's funny you mentioned 2007, because since October 2007, it's criminal to engage in occupational work where a license or registration is required. So had you have been caught in Connecticut, you could have been arrested and charged with a Class B misdemeanor for that engagement. So therefore, there's an apprenticeship, and you needed to be issued an apprenticeship card in order to engage in that work, to have received the on-the-job training. Equivalent experience, like you just heard with the last individual, having a Framingham license, he's engaging in the work outside of the state of Connecticut. So do you have experience outside of the state of Connecticut that can be substantiated?
I don't have any license outside of Connecticut, no.
Do you have any experience working within this craft for the P6 outside of the state of Connecticut that can be substantiated by a previous employer that can identify your dates of employment and your duties while unemployed?
All my companies were Connecticut based.
Right. So all your engagement has been in Connecticut, essentially violating the law.
I mean,
As the employer.
As the employer?
No, as the employer is engaged in criminal act too. By not registering you. It's illegal to have someone working on a licensed jurisdiction without being registered as apprentice in the state of Connecticut. We can actually hold them accountable.
Which I guess that was a misunderstanding on everybody's behalf on my side, not your side, because we were reading online, it says, on the website, it says the hours of service, and it breaks it down. You know what I mean? So I guess, no matter what, it still needs to be an apprenticeship no matter what.
Correct.
The gentleman that you're working for right now should have you register this afternoon and start getting your time.
Okay, now how I guess at this point I need better clarification from you guys. I have no problem doing what I have to do to obtain this license. I don't want to be the one breaking the law. You know what I mean? Like I just need to go to work. I got family to support, So I need to how many hours is this apprenticeship for a P6?
2,000 hours.
It's all available. You can see it all online. What's required for the license if you go to the Consumer Protection site.
Department of Labor. Yes, it is on our website, but you want to have your employer start a program with the Department of Labor, Office of Apprenticeship Training, immediately. Because you can't be working within the scope of that license without that apprenticeship card in your hand.
Okay.
And Guy, your employer will have this certificate sent to them by the Department of Labor. This says that his company is in good standing with the DOL, and he'll get that and they'll register you. So when they register you, if they don't have this document already, they'll be getting it to you, to your boss. I mean, so you want to be in good standing with the Apprenticeship Council for the Department of Labor.
Is there Excuse me, guys, is there anybody registered at La Rosa, for a for a license? Is there any registered apprentices? Because you guys do all earthwork, right? You guys do all underground utilities. Is there anybody registered?
We have 3 or 4 licensed guys. I don't know about the apprenticeship. I'd have to look into that. I'm not privy to the other crews, who is on what. I don't know I have no idea. I could look into it though.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're gonna have to make sure, go to your boss. Don't go to the employees, go to the boss and say, hey, I need to be registered in order to move forward here. So that's what they got to do for you.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Do you know what the ratio is?
There's 2 ratios in Connecticut. There's a job site ratio, which is 1-to-1, which means when you do become a registered apprentice, you need to be doing that work under the supervision of a licensee. But there's also a hiring ratio, which is 1-to-1 up to 3. So if there's 3 licensed guys, there could be 3 apprentices. But if the company seeks to have a 4th apprentice, they would need 6 journey people or a combination of journey people and contractors.
Okay, so as far as apprenticeship goes, a journey person and a contractor counts as the same?
The journey person and a contractor is just, it's as long as the license is appropriate. So you need 1 contractor of record, which would have to be identified in the program. So at a minimum here, a P7, possibly a P1. And then there would need to be other P6s that could account for that list, which would determine through the Department of Labor to be able to issue the apprenticeships out. So the Department of Labor, the apprenticeship rep, is going to look into how many licensees are on payroll for the company before being able to issue the apprenticeship.
Okay. All right, I'll get them on that. Sorry, guys.
No problem.
Thank you.
Good
Thank
luck,
you.
man.
Yeah, get it done, guy. Get it done.
Yeah, I'm gonna work on this afternoon. Get it going. And see what happens.
You said you got all your classes done already, right?
Yeah, I sent them in to you. Yeah. Again, I wouldn't have wasted everybody's time if I wasn't misled. You know
Well,
what I mean?
you'll be in good shape. You'll be in good shape.
I would be
next
done.
year.
Yeah, I
You'll
would
be
have been.
stuck-
I'd be
you'll
going for. I'd be going for a 7 right now instead of a 6.
Correct.
Well, you got to wait 2 years after you get your 6. You got to wait 2 years to become a contractor. So you got a 2-year window after that. So keep that in mind as well. That's why.
Yeah, well, I'll
time
be
is
just
of the
happy
essence.
with the 6 because, now you got me nervous.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, we do need a motion though on Mr. Cohn.
Yes. Yes.
So we're tabling it until a year, or we deny it and have to resubmit.
You're gonna have to resubmit and show your registration of apprentice, right?
Yeah, you don't have to come back before the board. If they get you into the apprenticeship, you're going to be issued upon completion a gold seal letter, which is your pathway to go right into the opportunity to go for the licensing examination. You don't have to come back before the board if you complete the apprenticeship. Unlike the other individual that again has out-of-state experience. That's why you heard that one get tabled.
No, I guess I'm just clarifying it because I already submitted an application. I just didn't know if we were, just back it up with the apprenticeship paperwork because you have everything else, or you're going to deny everything and I start over in a year.
The application's only good for a year anyhow. So whenever the
Yeah, it'll
date
be over anyway.
Exactly.
Right.
So
it's been in there for 3 months. So
get that
okay.
gold seal letter and then reapply, and you'll pass by the plumbing board. You won't have to come in front of us. You'll go right over to from the department. It'll send the approval to PSI to allow you to sit for the exam whenever you want it.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I ask the board a question? A different question?
Sure.
Continued education on these licenses?
Not required on a P6 or P7.
It's not required for the P6 or 7?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that was
I want to clarify that.
Yep, that was taken off the books 20 years ago.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, if we could just get that motion.
Yep.
Mr. Cohn.
Make the motion. Make a motion to deny.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of denial, say aye.
Aye.
Very good. Passes. Okay. We have the last one today, I believe. Vincent Vicolella. Hope I didn't mess that up.
Ziccolella.
Yeah. How you doing? Do we have you, Vincent, with us today here?
Yes, I'm right here.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it coming in. So why don't you give us a little update on what's going on with your application?
All right,
Vincent?
so my name's Vincent Ziccolella. I just recently moved to Newtown, Connecticut with my wife. We built a new house, and I've been a local plumber in Putnam and Westchester County in New York for 20 plus years. Worked for the same company, Lumar Plumbing and Heating, under Troy Gasparini, who is a current P1 plumber himself. Left the company 3 years ago to start my own company. Got my master licenses here in New York. You know, and going through the process with Karen, everything, she's been great. Giving my equivalent schooling, learned a lot actually through what I actually went through at school by going through this process, because my school actually was great. It was 4,000 hours of schooling already. And the only thing that we learned also through this was through Al Malazzi, who did my comparative analysis. He said I should have no problem obtaining my P1 through this, but the only things that I did not have school-wise was the OSHA 30, which I'm currently enrolled in the ClickSafe, the National Fire and Safety course, and I guess the gasoline course, because where I'm from in New York, gasoline is a whole separate trade. They don't include that in any of the plumbing. So I, gave all this information to Karen, the licenses, my degrees, my transcripts, my course descriptions, my work related, the field hours, the competitive analysis, also a letter of recommendation from my old boss, Troy Gasparini from Lumar Plumbing there in Brewster, New York. I'm just wondering if we were able to go for the P1, because if I went for the P2, like she was saying, I would need to have the P2 first for 2 years. I'm not quite sure how I would be able to work in the state of Connecticut legally, because I have current employees. Like, I wouldn't be able to work under somebody for the 2 years for the P2. I'm not quite sure like how I would be able to do that being self-employed myself now. So I'm just wondering like where we can be at with that. I feel like I'm right there with what I provided the state with my, degrees and everything and everything for that. So that's why I'm here now. I'm just trying to get a better idea of how I can go forward in obtaining this P1.
Vincent, I got a quick question for you. You
Go ahead.
currently have employees in the state of Connecticut, and you're operating in the state of Connecticut without a P1 at this moment?
No, I am not operating at all in the state of Connecticut. I'm trying to obtain the license legally so I can work in the state of Connecticut. I can legally only right now work in Putnam and Westchester County and also Dutchess County in New York. I do no work in the state of Connecticut. The reason why we're going for the Connecticut licenses, like I said earlier, my wife and I built a new house in Newtown. We moved here last year, actually last November. We're here a year. So when I take my truck to a deli or the grocery store here, people are like, oh, you're a plumber. They see the shirts I wear. Oh, can I have a card? And I say, oh, unfortunately, I'm not able to work here in the state of Connecticut. So my wife and I discussed everything, and we said, let's try to go forth with getting our license here so that we can do everything here legally.
Okay, thank you, Vincent. John, what do you recommend as the pathway for Vincent here?
Mr. Chair, so Vincent mentioned Al's name. Al is a Lincoln Tech instructor. Lincoln Tech, as being an approved educational institution within the state of Connecticut, does do comparative analysis based upon education. And I don't have his application open in front of me, but to his Vincent's mentioning there, he's lacking 3 classes. So the issue, I believe, with his application, Mr. Moore, correct me if I'm wrong, was that he's looking for approval for the P1, which he would have gotten at the application review working group, because he does have master licenses out of state. It was the deficiency in having the completion of the courses, which is why he's here before you today. So he's here looking to be excused for having to obtain the 3 courses that are outstanding. Which again, Vincent, if you could just highlight those. I know one was OSHA 30. I think one is NFPA, which is going to fall back to, so it's going to be NFPA 58, 54, which is going to be on the natural gas and the propane side. And then we have the gasoline courses that are there. So those are big portions of the
Absolutely.
P1, P2. So that's why he's here today.
And you're almost done with the, Vincent, you're almost done with the OSHA 30, you said, right? You're taking that online somewhere?
Yeah, so I'm in the process right now in ClickSafe. That's the first one I got because I knew at least I would be able to start that process for that for you guys. New York required us to do the 15. I need the 30 for Connecticut, so that's not a problem at all. And the other two classes were, like John said, it's gasoline and then the fire safety course.
So can you get those on the, through the school that you attended? Or do you be faster you to go to Penn Foster and get those?
I'd probably be faster to do the Penn Foster. I don't think that the school that I went to offers those classes because I would have to do a whole nother trade program in New York State to be a gasoline installer. In New York State, they only require us like under the plumber's license, we're able to do natural gas, propane, geothermal. That's all we can do in my license here in the two that I have here in New York.
Okay, so
like, I can't touch gasoline.
So you can get these courses at Penn Foster, and then we meet again in 3 months. So
okay,
and you can come back in front of us. Try to get everything done before you come back, and
okay,
so we can approve you. Okay.
Okay, great.
Okay, so with that, we'll get a motion to table it to your next meeting. I don't think we want to deny it, but I think we want to table it. Is that correct, John?
Motion to table.
We have a motion to table from Vinnie. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second from Jay Moore. Ty?
So hold on, Jay, if somebody else can
Oh,
make
I
that
can't- yeah, I
second,
can't
just
do it.
because,
Yeah,
Oh, that's
thank
right.
you, Jay.
Sorry about that. Aaron,
Sorry, I gotta
Aaron, were you the
recuse
tie?
I'm the backup second.
You got it. You got it with the pinstripes. Okay. All righty. Very good. Very good. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. Any discussion or denial? I'm sorry, denial? None. So good luck. Okay, Vincent, good luck to you.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it.
Hold on one second, Vinny. Mr. Chairman, if
Sure.
you don't mind. Vincent, if you get the courses completed, please send those over to Karen so that can be added to your application. So we can get you on the agenda for the next meeting. We're going to wait to hear from you. We're not going to add you to the
Yes.
agenda. So when you get those courses completed, please bring that in the transcript back before Karen so that we can get that before the board coordinator to have you back added to the agenda again.
You got it. Thank you guys
All right,
so much.
thank
I
you.
really appreciate it.
Thank you, Vincent.
Thank you.
Thank you, John, for making that piece. Do we have anything else that we want to add today? That's pretty much it, right?
Motion to adjourn.
I second that.
Wait, can I
Aye.
just ask a question? Hold on.
Was a
Rochelle,
comment
you have the dates you sent for the 2025 dates. It looks like it's the fourth Thursday of every month, except for the last two. July and October look like they're Fridays. Are those right?
Let me check. 1 second.
It's not necessary to update right now. I just put them on my calendar and noticed that those last two are Fridays.
Might have been holidays or just trying to avoid like holiday traveling and things, but let me just double check because I usually put a note if I change the date. So
Sorry, guys.
Oh,
Just
good
want to make
catch,
sure we all
Melissa.
see each other in 2025.
Yeah, it's a good catch.
Hey,
Yeah, the
Thursday's the
20
new Friday anyway, so we're all going to this for the week.
That's the spirit, Aaron.
I see the sun coming up a little bit up there in Aaron's office. See that in the background coming in now?
Yeah.
Working in the
Yeah,
dark there.
I
It's
can't
always
afford,
sunny in the Gold Coast, Mr.
I can't
Appleton.
afford the
Always
power
sunny.
down here. I'm paying the taxes.
I don't have any notes. Let me just I'll get back to you guys if I have that
You can just
wrong.
update us later. Just
Yeah, I'll send an email if I have it wrong. So
All right.
I just have to go
Thank
through
you.
and look at all the rest of the schedules because I'm working on everyone. So let me just make sure I didn't double book or anything. So
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Melissa's well planned out. She's looking deep into 25.
I mean, I just added them to the calendar like Rochelle sent out. So
And
You
they
know,
were all in
cruises.
person, right?
are we in person or Teams?
Yeah, they're all in person, I thought.
Yet here we all are. Just send that clarification to Rochelle.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Melissa. Okay. Thank you for Rochelle. We can call the meeting. We're all done. All in favor, say aye.
All right,
Aye.
Okay.
happy holidays, everyone. We won't see each other till January.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I do have them all for Teams. I'm sorry, my dog was barking in the background, so I was trying to get him to stop. But they are all Teams meetings.
Okay,
Great. Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye,
Have a
everybody.
good one.
Bye.
All right.
So
Thanks,
long.
James. Thanks, James.
Thank-
Bye, everybody. Bye.